Hello again, friends. For today's podcast, let's shift to the shifting Saudi sands of Saudi Arabia. And they're shifting radically under one Crown Prince Salman. The shifting Saudi sands due to Salman. Boy, that has a little flair to it, does it not? What am I referring to? Well, if you followed the news at all in the last week, especially last weekend, November 4th, November 5th, into November 6th of this week, a whole lot of activity, a flurry of activity of all types has been happening in Saudi Arabia, the likes of which we have not seen ever before, at least not in my lifetime of watching Saudi Arabian affairs. And it's speaking to a much bigger shift that's occurring within the society itself, but also is going to impact the entire Middle East in very big ways, possibly bellicose ways. That is, possibly ways that will lead to war. What's this Crown Prince got to do with all that? He's got everything to do with that. Now, what are the stories that I'm talking about? Well, on Saturday, November 4th, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, one Prime Minister Harari, quit. He resigned his position as the leader of Lebanon. Wait a minute, what's that got to do with Saudi Arabia? He did it from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. That's interesting. We'll come back to that. Meanwhile, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, same day, later that night, there was a midnight purge of princes. What? Yes, there was an anti-corruption campaign that just kicked off, same day, that saw 11 different princes being detained basically under house arrest for stealing bribery, sucking off of the teat of the Saudi state for decades. So there's this massive purge internally happening in Saudi Arabia. Well, that must be it then, right? That's all the news stories. No, wait! Later that day, a missile was fired from Yemen at Riyadh. That's right, Saudi Arabia. What? Was any damage incurred? Anybody died? No. Actually, the missile was shot down, which leads me to think it's a little bit suspect. But the missile was fired from Shia Houthi rebels in Yemen, which is in the state of a civil war for several years now, and shot into Saudi Arabia. This was denounced, shot down, and then denounced immediately by who? By Crown Prince Mohammad bin Salman, who said that the hand of Iran was behind all of these events, and that the Houthi rebels shooting a missile from Yemen at Saudi Arabia was actually pretty much an act of war declared by Iran on Saudi Arabia. That's his words, not mine. And the same Crown Prince also said that because the Lebanese Prime Minister had to quit due to threats from Iran, that was also a declaration of war on Saudi Arabia. So all of these things somehow are related back to Iran. They are, if you ask the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And because of these events, because of this bellicose nature of Crown Prince Salman, you could easily speculate that war is being kind of pushed, and that even if it's not a direct war between Saudi Arabia and Iran, that having Lebanon involved and Yemen involved, you could see Israel getting pushed into a war with Lebanon. And really what this is all about is a regional power struggle between Saudi Arabia and Iran that's erupting in several different places. And the flames of this are being fanned by who? Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Okay, that's all the events of just 3 days. Woo! In Saudi Arabia. I swear, it's the most Saudi-packed current events weekend I've ever seen. So let's get back to this dude. Why am I suggesting that all of these seemingly different news stories are all related to a singular narrative of Saudi Arabia versus Iran for greater regional control or greater regional hegemony or whatever you want to call it? And what's this Crown Prince got to do with it? Well, let's talk about the Crown Prince first. We'll relate these things in as this story unfolds. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. I keep calling him Salman, like the fish. And he's not even the king. He's the Crown Prince. A couple different things about this, his name. Crown Prince means you're the next in line for the throne in Saudi Arabia. So he will become king once the current king steps down. Who's the current king? King Salman. And so King Salman is the current king. Crown Prince Mohammad bin Salman is his son. And that's the other thing. Crown Prince means the next in line. Anytime you see the word bin, Mohammed bin Salman, that means the son of. So Mohammed, his name is Mohammed, son of Salman. Okay. He's the next in line, and he is the son of the king. He is a really intriguing character that we need to study in a little bit more detail because he's going to be around for a while. He is simultaneously the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. He's also the first Deputy Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia. It's his official title in that capacity. He's only 32 years old, and he is simultaneously the Minister of Defense of Saudi Arabia. He is the youngest Minister of Defense on planet Earth, by the way. Side note. He's also the President of the Council for Economic and Developmental Affairs for Saudi Arabia. And pretty much everyone who knows Saudi politics, the Saudi royal family, and even us world watchers, we understand that what's going on here is that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, he's the real power already in Saudi Arabia. He's the power behind the throne of the current king, his dad, King Salman. And I keep saying King Salman. King Salman. King Salman is like another name for Chinook salmon, a type of big fish in Oregon. So Salman, King Salman. Crown Prince Mohammed, which I'll call him Crown Prince Mohammed from now on to alleviate confusion, he is the real deal. He is the power behind the throne. He is really calling all the shots. And he's been doing this for about 2.5, possibly 3 years now. He actually even pushed off, it was supposed to be a cousin or brother-in-law or somebody else was the crown prince as of a year or so ago, and they pushed him out of the way and made Muhammad the crown prince. That was the first kind of power play. And he, for 2.5 years now, has overseen a crazy amount of change in the kingdom, and it looks like he's just getting warmed up. Again, he's not even the real king yet. So what am I suggesting? That Crown Prince Mohammed is going to change? Everything. He has grand designs to transform Saudi society in every way, shape, and form. Political change is already afoot. Military change, foreign policy change, a much stronger role for Saudi Arabia, an outward projection of power role for Saudi Arabia in the region. He wants economic change, and indeed, he's even pushing for radical social change that we're starting to hear about already. Again, he's not even power. And all of the stories that I just mentioned from the last weekend reflect this massive Saudi shift that is afoot, and it's afoot under Crown Prince Mohammed. He is determined to remodel his very conservative country into a much more modern state, and one that's perhaps not even as dependent on oil as it has been in the past. Now, this has taken him to take on all sorts of these reforms, from economic reforms to waging outright war in neighboring Yemen, a war he started. Now he's the face of Saudi Arabia that's declaring that there's a possible war getting ready to unfold with Lebanon. He is very likely the one that encouraged Prime Minister Hariri to resign. That's why Hariri resigned on Saudi soil. And now he's possibly even inciting this war with Iran. Now, that's what I mostly want to talk about. All this stuff's really exciting, and this dude's a case study in rapid-fire societal change. But I mostly want you to understand what's going on with Iran and the Saudi relationship with Iran and why all these stories are indeed related. First off, Saudi Arabia and Iran hate each other. If you've read ahead in the book, if you've taken my class in previous semesters / years / decades, yes, I've been around that long, you probably have a basic understanding of what I call the teams that have been vying for control of the Middle East for centuries, nay, millennium. Now, I won't talk about all the other teams like Israel or Team Turk up in Turkey or even the Kurds. We'll mostly concentrate on the Arab world versus the Persian world, because that is the main big first difference you need to understand to understanding why these two sovereign states hate each other. Again, we're talking about Saudi Arabia versus Iran. There are other Arab states besides Saudi Arabia, but suddenly Saudi Arabia is leading the charge to face off against Iran and possibly have a conflict with Iran. And it's mainly, first and foremost, based on ethnic differences. People from Iran are Persians. It's a different ethnic group than Arabs, which are people from Saudi Arabia, and actually most of the Middle East is ethnically Arab. Everybody in Egypt is ethnically Arab. Everybody in Algeria, ethnically Arab. So the Arab world encompasses most of North Africa and big chunks of the Middle East, and certainly the whole Arabian Peninsula, or most of the Arabian Peninsula. Persian people are over in Iran. So over time, and we're talking millennia now, at any given point in the last 2,000 to 3,000 years, the Persian Empire, the Persian peeps, were large and in charge and dominated all of the Middle East. And at different times, and we're mostly thinking now of the rise of Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, which spread Islam all across the Middle East and created an Arab-based Islamic empire at that time that dominated Iran and everybody else in the region. So there's been a back and forth, and that's been exacerbated or accentuated by religious difference between these two countries. Yes, they're all Islamic, all followers of Islam. However, there are two kind of sub-branches of Islam. Sunni Islam, which dominates most of the world, 90% of the world is Sunni Islamic, and Shia Islam. Shia Islam, only about 10% globally, with the biggest concentration of Shias, where? In Iran. So it's not a great ideological rift of Islam between Sunni and Shia. Honestly, I won't say it's trivial, but the differences between the two are not gigantic. It's not the same as the difference between, say, Catholic and Protestantism in the Christian division of affairs. That was based on huge ideological differences, and you had a tearing off between the Catholic Church and then the Protestants who wanted to reform it. And that's a big difference. Sunni versus Shia is not a big ideological difference. It's more of a cultural difference. But it's been, again, exacerbated, accentuated over the centuries, so that Iran is now seen as the kind of home base of the Shias, and Saudi Arabia and Egypt, especially Saudi Arabia, is kind of the home base of the Sunnis, although, again, Sunni is the predominant branch that most Islamic folks worldwide are of the Sunni division. So you have ethnic differences, historical empire differences, religious differences, and into the modern world, right this second, the reason Saudi Arabia really hates Iran is because of different types of government structure. So back in 1979, Iran decided to have an Islamic revolution, and they overthrew the monarchy of their state and put into play a theocracy. That is a religious-based government, a religious-led government. And ever since then, Iran has been exporting its ideas and trying to export its Islamic revolution to other states of the Middle East. Iran says, hey, we're all good Islamic people here, and we're so good, we're an Islamic state. Over there next door in Saudi Arabia and most other places in the Middle East, they're monarchies. Who put them in charge? That's not being a good Islamic country. They're not true followers of the faith. They have a monarch in charge. We have a religious leader in charge. Again, I'm not defending Iran, and I'm not really defending anybody. I want you to understand that Iran sees itself as the true kind of purveyor of proper Islamic government, and it makes fun of all of the monarchs and military dictators like what's in charge of Egypt. And they say those people don't have real power because they're in 100% Islamic states, but they're not letting Islam be the central tenet of the government. For its part, Saudi Arabia and all the other Arab states totally hate Iran because they're like, look, we don't want a revolution here because if there's an Islamic revolution in Saudi Arabia, it would overthrow all of us, the people in charge. It would overthrow the monarchy like they did in Iran, and we don't want that. So they don't like Iran, and they don't like Iran exporting those ideas and that ideology, and they see the evil hand of Iran in all sorts of any sort of revolutionary activity, even the Muslim Brotherhood, if you know who that is. So they see, the Arab states see Iran as a existential threat to the status quo of their governments. So you put all these together, ethnic differences, historic differences, religious differences between Sunni, Shiite, and different types of governments. And that, my friends, encapsulated in just 5 or 10 minutes, is why these two states absolutely hate each other. And if you learn nothing else, that should help you understand current events as they continue to unfold, as these two major powers start to go head to head with each other, and it's popping up all over the place in conflicts. You'll see Crown Prince Mohammad and others in the Arab world call this the Shia Crescent. Iran is the core of Shia, power, but they've been moving that power and exerting that power in other states, namely the Iraqi government. Iraq is majority Shia right now. So Iran has a lot of influence in the Iraq government. And so they're kind of under the Shia influence. The leader of Syria, the president, al-Assad, who's been in the crux of a civil war for 7 years now, he is not necessarily a Shia, but he's Shia affiliated. So Iran is friends with Assad and the government of Syria. And back to Lebanon, there's a political group there, a political group / a terrorist group called Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a dominant Shia political party / terrorist group that kind of is the main power of Lebanon. That's the Shia Crescent, the influence of Shia Iran in other places. Oh, and one other little spot I forgot to point out. The Shia Houthi rebels down in Yemen. That's right. Yemen is in the brink of a civil war too, just like Syria. And it's a civil war between Shia rebels, which are supported by Iran, and the Arab Sunni government that's recognized and supported by Saudi Arabia. Oh, I just now referenced all of those current events that I was talking about. They're all related. This is this big face-off between these competing powers that is manifesting itself as active wars or acts of war or political intrigue in surrounding states. Starting to see it now. And back to the Crown Prince, that's who I was going to talk about. This guy really, really, really hates Iran. And he's stepping up the rhetoric and beating the war drum against Iran in very overt, that is open and in-your-face ways. Now, this is not a new role for Saudi Arabia. All the previous kings of Saudi Arabia really don't like Iran either. They really have been leery of, if not outright scared of, the increase in Iranian power across the region in the last few decades. Again, they see Iran as an existential threat to themselves, because if Iran is successful at exporting a theocratic revolution, they're all going to lose their jobs in the Arab world. So everyone previous to Crown Prince Mohammad has also hated Iran. What's so new about him? He is in your face about it, and he's not even in power yet. So as Minister of Defense, Crown Prince Mohammad has already taken it upon himself in the last few years to beef up the military even more than it has been being beefed up. And the Saudi Arabian military has bought billions of dollars worth of weaponry in the last decade or so. That's an understatement. It's probably hundreds of billions of dollars of weaponry in the last 10 or 20 years. A lot of it from the United States. So I might be over-exaggerating by saying hundreds and hundreds of billions, but I think that it's got to be over 100 billion at this point. There was one single Saudi arms deal with the United States about 5 years ago that was 60 billion, just one deal. So since Crown Prince Mohammad has come into this picture, he's like, oh yeah, Saudi power, buy more, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in. We want to tighten up our resolve. We want to have a stronger military than we've ever had since, I don't know, the days of the Islamic Caliphate 1,000 years ago. So this guy is Johnny on the spot building up the military, and this is a sign of things to come, because now he is already on TV saying Iran is responsible for all of this, and they're declaring war on us already. And it's like, whoa, 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 dude, hang on. Now, that's just what happened this weekend. It's also Crown Prince Mohammad that initiated that war with Yemen back in 2015 in his role as defense minister. This is while he was still brand new and kind of behind the scenes. So Yemen was already in a state of civil war actually Yemen's been in a state of civil war for decades. But the current one is between this Arab Sunni government, which is barely a government, but it's recognized by Saudi Arabia. It has no real control over the country. And this group called the Houthi rebels, which are Shia affiliated and perhaps sponsored in large part by Iran. I say perhaps. Everybody assumes that. I guess they are. How much weaponry and money they're getting directly from Iran, I don't know, but everybody assumes they're getting it all. So that's why that civil war is happening down there. And Crown Prince Mohammad saw all this when he got into power. He's like, good, I'm declaring war on these guys right now too. I'm going to help out the embattled government of Yemen our Arab Sunni brothers by bombing the living hell out of all the Houthi targets that I can. And that's been happening since 2015. It's been a Saudi-led coalition, so there's been some other Arab states that have kind of helped, but it's been mostly Saudi Arabia that have been acting on this invitation from the Yemenese government, which is barely a government, by targeting the Iran-aligned Houthi rebels in a war that's killed at least 10,000 people in Yemen, and it's now unleashed an absolute humanitarian disaster. Perhaps tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands more, are in threat of dying from famine and cholera and a bunch of diseases. And when that Houthi group fired a missile at Saudi Arabia over the weekend, Saudi Arabia bombed back, but they also closed all the ports of Yemen and closed it even to international aid groups like UN agencies. So this is a massive, big mess that's been a mess for decades, a bigger mess in the last 3 years, and is now turning into an absolute humanitarian disaster here in the next several weeks. That's Crown Prince Mohammad, because he wanted to stop the influence of Iran. At least that's his perception. It was also very likely Crown Prince Mohammad that initiated a diplomatic campaign to isolate Qatar just in June of 2017. That's not that long ago. Now, again, you probably haven't followed this, but all of the Arab states, I should say all the Arab states on the Arabian Peninsula, led by Saudi Arabia, so the other ones like the UAE and Oman and Kuwait, they have all targeted Qatar and isolated it and had like a trade embargo against it and basically tried to break it with a trade embargo, but Qatar has been doing fine thus far. But that just started in June 17, and why would they have done that? Because Crown Prince Mohammad and Saudi Arabia in general say that Qatar is too friendly with, wait for it, Iran. And that Qatar has too friendly relations with Iran, and that Qatar may be helping Iran spread theocratic revolution or spread Shia power, whatever they're accusing Qatar of. They don't like Qatar being too cozy with Iran, even though Qatar is an Arab, mostly Sunni state, I think. So that was also initiated by Mohammed to, again, try to stop Iranian influence. And now we'll catch up to now. And now is now. In the last week, we'll revisit those stories. What happened? The Lebanese Prime Minister quit. Where did he quit? Did he quit while in the capital of Lebanon? No. He quit on TV in Saudi Arabia. Again, you have to start asking the questions, what? First off, why did he quit? He said, this is Prime Minister Harari, said, I'm quitting because the Hezbollah group is too powerful. The Shia Hezbollah group that's backed by Iran is too powerful in Lebanon. They're tearing the society apart. I can't fight with this type of power. They control everything. And I'm receiving death threats. I'm receiving death threats that I'm going to be killed by Iranian secret agents or Hezbollah secret agents. There was not specified. Who told him this rumor that he might be getting assassinated? My guess is Saudi Arabia, but maybe I'm reading too much into it. But certainly, Saudi Arabia wanted to host him to make this announcement. Again, what's the real announcement here? Iran is bad and they're messing with Lebanon. And all the Saudi family, again, Crown Prince Mohammad especially, said, see what's going on? Iran is everywhere. It's their fault this guy quit. And essentially they're trying to take over Lebanon, the country, and to us that's almost an act of war as well. See how that little story gets related? Because Hezbollah, again, Shia dominated Hezbollah, funded by and supported by Iran. Back to that Yemen missile being fired. I've already explained that. And the same day, Yemen fires a missile. The Houthi Shia rebels fire a missile at Riyadh, and it gets shot down immediately. I don't like conspiracy theories, all right? I try to be as logical as possible when interpreting and understanding the world. But this starts to smell a little bit like a conspiracy. This all happened on the same day, and where did these guys get this missile? Everybody says, they got the missile from Iran. Iran gave these guys a missile, and that's why basically Crown Prince Mohammad has said, this is an act of war on Iran's part. They gave these guys a missile, and they shot this missile at us. And I don't like conspiracy theories. I like to accept the world as it's being portrayed to us. But the timing to me is very bizarre. And they not only did they shoot this missile, and they recorded it. They recorded the missile, and they recorded this and sent it out. Why would a rebel group do that? That would, again, that's not logical. It's not logical it would happen at this precise time that Crown Prince Mohammad is making this case against Iran, and the fact that the missile got shot down immediately. I know that the missile interception technology is getting better, but that seems a little too cut and dry. This rebel group has one missile, they shoot it, the Saudis immediately know where it's at, they immediately shoot it down, nobody gets hurt, but we know it's Iran. It's like, whoa. That's a little too clean, that's a little too tidy. So I'm not suggesting it's a setup. But it wouldn't surprise me to see that this is a coordinated series of events. Did Saudi Arabia give the missile to these guys to fire at themselves? No. But to me, it's just a little too tidy. I think we're going to hear more about that story. But let me get to the other stories too. Because I said at the same weekend, November 4th and 5th, there was a purge of princes. Wait, what? What's that got to do with anything? Led by Crown Prince Mohammad bin Salman, he decided that corruption in the kingdom has reached too great of a height, that too much of the money from the oil industry has been going into the pockets of super rich people, and most of these super rich people are part of the royal family. Now, I know that might be confusing for those of you that don't understand the royal Saudi line, but it's massive. It's not just like, the Queen of England and her kids. There are, I don't even know, dozens, hundreds of princes of Saudi Arabia. So it's like kind of like the tribal elite of the one main tribe that's ran Saudi Arabia since World War I. And they have been enriching themselves because they own all the oil wealth. Saudi Arabia controls all of its oil industry. It's not private enterprise, it's state-run. So every single dollar of every single barrel of oil that's been sold for 100 years has gone into the Saudi royal family coffers. And that's promoted this lifestyle of palaces for each little prince and sub-prince and gonna be prince. And, there's a lot of excess. And so what this princely purge is all about is Mohammed trying to, I believe, seem more like a man of the people, even though he's royal, and saying, yeah, we want to clean up our act, and there's too much excess, and we want to use this money more wisely, get rid of corruption, pull the money back in to give to the Saudi people or build up Saudi industry or infrastructure and all these things. And that's admirable. Now, why would he do this? He's such a super nice guy? And maybe, but it certainly consolidates power around him. It's an easy excuse to purge out anyone who might not be on board with his program for the future. So, again, he's not even the king yet, and he has very successfully consolidated power within the royal family, consolidated power within the government, and it's a rally for the public opinion. Most Saudi citizens, I guess, would be like, wow, this guy's cleaning up Saudi. This is great. So he's getting more popular by the second and more powerful. And to finish off the trifecta of current events that I mentioned at the top of the podcast, by November 5th, November 6th, that's the Monday and even into Tuesday, Crown Prince Mohammad has publicly denounced the long, evil hand of Iran in virtually all of these conflicts that are happening everywhere, and outright calling it close to a declaration of war. Now, again, he's not the king, so he can't declare war, even though he's the Minister of Defense. He's not saying Saudi Arabia is declaring war. He has publicly said, to us, this looks like Iran is declaring war on us. Iran is declaring war on Lebanon, and by proxy, they're declaring war on us. And Iran, by helping these Houthi rebels shoot a missile at us, is declaring war on us. So that's how all of those stories are related. Hopefully you understand a great amount of the current events that, again, seemingly are just random weird things that all happened in one weekend in Saudi Arabia. But there is no randomness, my friends. There are no coincidences, not in current events. So that's how all those stories are related. I want to finish the podcast, even though it's a long one. I think it's a good one because I loved all these stories tying together. But let me tell you a few other things that this dude is up to and why he's so important to know. I said he is his first and primary role in the public eye right now is the anti-Iran thing, for sure. But he is also determined to remodel his entire very conservative country into a modern state. He's publicly said that too. How is he going to do that? He is doing a bunch of different things I want you to know about. He is behind the selling of part of Aramco, which is the national Saudi Arabian oil company. So it's been, again, controlled and owned by the Saudi Arabian government for all this time. And he is saying, yeah, we need to not privatize it, not sell all of it, but sell part of it, sell part of the shares to private industry. Because of that whole thing that if your private industry gets involved, it becomes more competitive and you increase technology and all this other stuff. And it's going to generate a whole hell ton of money too. I think they're going to sell 5 or 10% shares of the oil company to private enterprise. And just doing that will probably make $100 billion, who knows. And he's going to take some of that money and sink it into other things, like the military. That's number one. He's going to sell part of Aramco. The second big thing I already mentioned, the midnight purge of princes. He's going to clean up corruption. He's going to save the Saudi citizens more money. He's going to pull power away from, honestly, all of the kind of royal hierarchy that has been the standard operating procedure for the past. So that's a really big deal too. All this time, there's been palace intrigue. Some prince takes out some other prince. But they've never had it at the highest level like this. So this is a real, what we call a sea change. He is putting everybody on alert that it's not going to be business as usual in Saudi Arabia anymore, not even within the aristocracy, not even within the royal family. So things are going to change there too, and this purge is part of that. This is maybe the opening chapter of this purge. 3, he is moving away from the ultra conservative Wahhabist doctrine, which has really dominated Saudi politics for decades. I guess since Saudi Arabia became an independent state after World War I. Now, I don't expect you to know everything about Wahhabist doctrine, but when you think of the most ultra conservative versions of Islam, that's Wahhabist doctrine that's out of, I think it's Eastern Saudi Arabia. So these are the folks that ban gender mixing, so men and women can't talk to each other in public unless they're married, banned concerts, banned cinema, there aren't any movie theaters, you can't go see a movie in Saudi Arabia, banned alcohol. Again, the most ultra-conservative traditionalist stuff that you can think of, that you have in your brain for Islamic culture, that's Wahhabist. And that has dominated Saudi Arabia, which is why it's one of the most conservative states on planet Earth, much less conservative states that are Islamic. He is moving away from that. And he's doing it quickly. And that's kind of odd, because there's been a very tight relation between this Wahhabist clerical class and the royal family. Again, since the country's been an independent country. One supports the other, right? Kind of the classic old school way in Europe that the Pope would go crown the King of France. Why is that important? Well, in doing so, they empower each other. The Pope, by crowning the King of France, is saying, I have the power to make you king. And the king in return says, okay, I recognize that power that you have to give me power to rule France. So we both work together to stay in power. See how that is? And that's the way that the Wahhabist clergy has been, whatever the Wahhabist class has been, supporting the Saudi monarchy. And the Saudi monarchy, in return, allows them to dictate cultural norms. And they've been tight. So this is a really big deal. How do I know he's doing this? Well, from many public pronouncements, but he's the one that was behind lifting the ban on women driving. I know you heard about that story, that's just a couple of months ago too. So Crown Prince Mohammad is saying, hey, again, I'm a man of the people. I want to open up our society. I want to make it, we should not be so super conservative. We should be more modern like other parts of the planet and even other Islamic countries. So that's a big deal. It's not going to go down well, by the way, with the ultra-conservative class. They're not going to be happy about it, and they're going to fight. But that's the direction he is saying he's going to go in. And part of this direction is also economic. He has this thing called Vision 2030. And it's specifically Crown Prince Mohammed's blueprint to move the Saudi economy away from its absolute dominance on oil sales. I mean, Saudi Arabia is one of those countries that's addicted to oil. Much like many oil-producing countries, it's the only thing they do. So when the price of oil goes down, Saudi Arabia doesn't make as much money this year. The price of oil has been down, which is why the Venezuelan economy is collapsing. So looking forward, trying to look forward, Crown Prince Mohammad wants to diversify their economy, diversify their society, but diversify the economy and put more of it into the private sector. We just talked about Aramco. But also this Vision 2030 is they want to use government money to encourage entrepreneurship and foreign investment. And they've specifically said one of their targets is to pull more women into the workforce. Now we're back to social change. So they specifically said it's Vision 2030 because they want to have 30% of women in the workforce by 2030. It's like, wow, okay. Again, women, as of 2 months ago, weren't even allowed to drive. Women had to have permission to get a job. I mean, it's a very, very regimented conservative society, and he's moving quickly away from that. The other economic thing he's done recently, and this is going to be interesting, is called NEOM. I don't even know how you pronounce it. N-E-O-M, NEOM. And it's a planned 10,000 square mile transitional economic zone that's going to be constructed in the border regions of not just Saudi Arabia, but from Jordan all the way down to Egypt. And it's going to be a place where, again, through government funding and encouragement of foreign investment, that they build up a whole lot of diversified industry. What types of industry? I don't know exactly, but maybe, maybe steel, maybe auto manufacturing, maybe software, maybe a bunch of information technologies. That's what forward-thinking people are doing around the world, is we want to diversify our economy, creates jobs, but also lessens our dependence on oil. And Saudi Arabia is 100% dependent on oil, so they kind of got to go in that direction. Just imagine a world in which some fossil fuel alternative was ever developed. We wake up tomorrow and somehow somebody made the ultimate solar panel and we don't need oil anymore. Saudi Arabia's screwed. Russia's screwed. Venezuela's gone. That's all they got is oil. So this Crown Prince is saying, hey, we should plan for that day starting now. So, in total, Crown Prince Mohammed's ascent represents what we call a true sea change. A sea change is an ocean, S-E-A, a sea change. That is, the Saudi society has been going in this direction for its entire existence. The boat has just been slowly moving in this direction. And this one Crown Prince is saying, nope, we're readjusting. So it's not like a car. When you're driving a car, you just turn. When you're on a big boat, you start to turn, but it takes a while. So this is a sea change that's happening. This guy is implementing a whole lot of economic, social, and even political military changes, which are appealing to the younger generation of Saudi citizens in a very big way. The old folks ain't going to be happy about it. The super religious aren't going to be happy about it. Some of the other crown princes, or I should say the royal family princes, aren't going to be happy about it. But he has said this country is going to move to a more open, economically diversified, tolerant interpretation of Islam. And all of these reforms are part and parcel of what I'm going to do in terms of reforming the economy, reforming the educational system, reforming the courts, reforming Islamic law. I mean, that's everything. That's a full societal transformation. And how is he going to do this? Whip up Saudi national pride. Have everybody love him, consolidate power to himself, and try to be as popular as he can with the younger generations as much as possible. Remember, he's only 32. If he becomes king, he could be king for 50 years. So he's courting the younger generation. He don't care about the old people. He's purging them. He's going after the young crew. And how do you do that? You whip up national pride. You say, hey, I'm going to fix everything. I'm going to make life better. I'm going to diversify. You're going to get jobs. We're going to have music soon and maybe even a bar. And trust me, if Crown Prince Mohammad lets alcohol be there, I'm going to open up the first bar in Riyadh. I'll probably be assassinated shortly thereafter, but it'll be a really nice bar for a while. So he's going to open up the society and do all these great things and whip up what I keep saying is Saudi national pride. And that's a really great way to build allegiance to him and his reforms and his ideals. Is because when you get everybody whipped up about how awesome Saudi Arabia is, it's like, make America great again. What that does is breaks down local allegiances. It breaks down tribal allegiance. It breaks down certain religious affiliations so that you're not saying, well, Saudi Arabia is fine, but, it's my tribe comes first. Or, Wahhabist religion comes first for me. We just happen to be in Saudi Arabia, but this is the main thing. By whipping up Saudi pride, you make focus on Saudi Arabia, number one. And it's like that's what brings people together. Kind of like how you rally for your favorite soccer team in Europe. You're like, yeah, Barcelona, yeah! That's number one. That's what he's trying to do. And I'll end on this. A great way to do that, a great way to project strength and whip up national pride is to find a common enemy that everyone in your state can rally together to hate. And who's that going to be? You got it. It's going to be Iran. So, big deal with this new crown prince who's soon to be the king, who really behind the scenes already is. Know his name, Crown Prince Mohammad bin Salman, soon to be King Mohammed, who is going to put a new face forward for Saudi Arabia and a possibly more bellicose, warlike footing for the Sauds versus their number one enemy, Iran. Learn anything good? Like this podcast? Want another one? Then hit me up and we'll see what we can do. But for now, party on.